Good evening, friends and family of Love and the Scriptures. I just put some Bliss Tex ointment on my lips, and so that white look that you might see is what that is. Hello, good to have you all with me on tonight for Love and the Scriptures. You are invited, of course, to be thought partners and conversation partners with me. Um, A couple of things I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about finishing the year well, ending it well, and then beginning the new year well. And because I'm here in Montgomery, Alabama, at the Equal Justice Initiative's Legacy Museum, I want to talk some about that experience also, because that, in my estimation, lends itself in a great way to what's ahead of us as African Americans. And so I want to talk some about that also. I hope to be a great discussion tonight as we're ending the year. I hope everybody had a good holiday if you celebrate, or however you celebrate. Um, of course, y'all know I'm taking this time to make sure my social media sites are up and ready. But as I said, hope everybody's had and is having a good holiday if you do celebrate. Um, I said last time we were talk about some about why Christmas, why we know that Christmas, Jesus' birthday is in December 25th. I might get to sneak some of that in there. We got a lot of time, so we may actually, yes, get to do some of that. Um, Actually, that could be a starting point for us. But again, I invite you to be thought partners, conversation partners with me on tonight. Let me do start with the Christmas thing. Since I said I wish you all, hope you had whatever if you do celebrate it. What is true for us in the African American community? Everybody does not celebrate all of the holidays that we used to. We know that's a fact. I'm one of those ones. That's true about, and that has to do with the fact of learning, really understanding what the real history and context of those things are about. When you know better, you do better. Me being a history teacher, me being a historian, me being a culturalist, lends to the fact that understanding what what we do is about is more important than what we actually do. Because if you're doing thing and there's no meaning attached to it, it's rote. It is just customary. It's just habit. Uh, but for my age and stage of life, meaning has to be attached to, has to be associated with everything, and that for some makes me boring and makes me a square. And guess how much I don't care if that's the opinion of me, because what the scriptures teach us that in all our getting, or the Proverbs, what is it, 8 says, when wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, but with all your getting, get an understanding. And so, with the scriptures giving that as it is counsel, it's instruction, it's admonition, with the scriptures giving that to us, we ought to be setting ourselves to understand why we do what we do. And I'm just seeing a shadow behind me. Y'all don't mind that shadow. I'm in Birmingham. I'm in Montgomery. I'm in a hotel, and so I just set up in the last 7 minutes. Came in here, rushed in to set up for the show, and so I didn't check lighting and do all of that stuff. So y'all just forgive the shadow back there. It's just me. In regard then to that understanding, that discussion about the holidays before. When we did Thanksgiving last month, I talked about that, the origins of that, and how the romantic version of what is told is not how things necessarily happen. Hey, my sister Portia out there in the San Francisco area, so good to see you. Thank you for being here. And so, as true as that is about Thanksgiving, all of the major holidays that are holidays in this country have a very similar story in that it's duplicitous in how to understand what they are. There is an American version, a romantic version, and then there is what is the real. Christmas is no different because none of what is that holiday is originally about has anything to do with America. The only thing that has to do with America and Christmas is the commercial aspect. On the two sides, the one of the huge advertisement campaigns, and on the other side, the consumer aspect that advertising is aimed at. That's the only American idea about what is Christmas. Otherwise, all of the things that are associated, the elements that are associated, the date has to do with ancient Egyptian religions. The tree, the tinsel, the lights, all of those things have to do with Eastern and pagan religious ideas. And let me charge you, those of you who are hearing this and that's rubbing you some kind of way, just check it out. I'm putting it out there for you. You go and check out what I'm saying to you and just verify, vet me on that. I wouldn't bring anything to us that I don't know what I'm talking about. And so in that vein, please, ma'am, please, sir, do your due diligence and research that. Study those things and see what that is about. Jesus actually would have been born, for those who then would take Christmas and Christianize it. Jesus wasn't even born in the wintertime. Jesus likely, there are two suggestions actually that it would be the fall harvest time that he would have been born, or more appropriately, it would have been spring. Those are two ideas. What is true is the scriptures are very careful not to touch either of those ideas with any being in any way explicit. The Bible, in fact, talks far more, almost 3 times more about Jesus's death and resurrection than it does about his birth. For the first about 300 years of the church, nothing about the birth of Jesus was even celebrated. And so all of that becomes a constructed idea of holiday and celebration. The Bible does not do with the birth of Jesus what modern Christianity does with Christmas. It's whole, complete different matter. And so, coming into those understandings, in fact, to really look at how other religious ideas were conflated to make a Christian Christmas, to really get to that. Now, some of you would be surprised to really know and understand what that's about, but I'm charging you. I'm assigning you homework. Go and look that stuff up, what we're talking about the Christmas trees, about the lights, about the tinsel, about all of those things, and even the birth of Christ. Check it out and come back to me and let's talk about it. One of the reasons, or at least one of the effects of that with me, because Christmas is what it is. And let me back up and say this much also. Now, because I don't celebrate Christmas and acknowledge it the same way that I grew up with, doesn't mean that I hate on or have anything against anybody else who does. I'm not in that seat that says because I don't anymore, because where I am, I expect you to be there too. No, ma'am, no, sir. It's not that kind of party. For those who still love to, for those who look forward to, for those who to whom it still means a great deal. God bless you. More power to you. I don't have any qualms with that at all. It doesn't disassociate our fellowship. It doesn't end our friendship. It doesn't put us at odds with each other. All right. I still love you the same way. All of that remains intact for me. However, I say all that to come to this fact that when it comes to the greeting, people's thing is they double down on saying Merry Christmas. You have to say Merry Christmas. With me, to say that would be a limitation and an exclusion of what all this season is about. For me, this season entails the holiday of Thanksgiving. It entails the holiday of Hanukkah. Jesus literally celebrates Hanukkah himself, John chapter 10, for those of you who need a reference for that. It literally incorporates what is on the calendar Christmas. It also includes what started yesterday, which is Kwanzaa. Today is the second day of that. Yesterday, principle or theme for Kwanzaa, Umoja, unity. Today's theme, this is my favorite of all the 7 days of Kwanzaa, Kujichagulia, which is self-determination, for us to speak for us to name, and for us to stand up for ourselves, self-determination. But Kwanzaa is also a part of this holiday season. And then, of course, the new year. And so for me, it's not Merry Christmas. To me, it's Happy Holidays. To me, it's season's greetings, because it's not a limited, exclusive holiday. For me, all of this, and I start in November saying Happy Holidays to people. And I bring that up because I remember how many people had such harsh criticism. People don't want to say Merry Christmas anymore. They say Happy Holidays. They say season's greeting. Well, yes. And I started to call people names, but I'm not going to do that. Yes, I say Happy Holidays and season's greetings, because I understand that there's more that is happening than what you're celebrating on December 25th. Other things are going on. And you need to broaden your understanding about that. You need to broaden your understanding about that. It's been so interesting these couple of days that I've been here. And when I've greeted sisters and brothers throughout Montgomery and Birmingham and said Happy Kwanzaa to them, it's really interesting how they have responded to hearing that. Now, they didn't initiate it, but when I've greeted them that way, they have had such an incredible response to it all. Sister Adrienne in Tulsa Land, how you doing, sweetheart? Good to have you with us tonight. Thank you for joining us. And so then the broadening of the understanding. That's going to be I love you too, Adrienne. We need to talk. I need to see you. You need to come see us down in First Baptist Central in Okmulgee. Amen. And so in terms of that, I've talked about this greeting, Happy Kwanzaa. That's going to lead me, segue kind of into talking about my experience at the Equal Justice Initiative. Well, that's the foundation and the company, the Equal Justice Initiative. The museum is called the Legacy Museum. And I always get that mixed up because I knew of Brian Stevenson, who is actually the founder of the organization and the builder of this museum. I knew of he and his work first before I knew about the museum. The museum actually didn't even exist when I learned about who he was. You all will know Brian Stevenson from the book he wrote called Just Mercy, and the movie that was made off of the book, movie starring Michael B. Jordan as Brian Stevenson, starring Jamie Foxx as I forget the brother's name, Willis. Anyway, Jamie Foxx plays him in the movie, and that again was taken from the book. Brian Stevenson's work as an attorney is about equal justice. He represents people who have been falsely accused, or at least that in terms of the cases that have led to their convictions, the evidence there that has been found that overwhelmingly they should never have been convicted in the first place. And so his work for the last, I know it's 25 plus, but it's probably 30 years or so. That's what his work has been. And out of that work and his examination of, and that, I love this when I saw it at the museum, he doesn't call it the criminal justice system. It's referred to as he refers to the criminal legal system because of the absence of justice that exists, particularly and specifically for African American people. And most people say black and brown people, and you do whatever you want with that. I say for African American people. But his work is centered and focused on that. And in that, he has developed the corporation, Equal Justice Initiative, and then the Legacy Museum, so let me try to give the whole scope. Sister Portia says, love his work. Another book he has referenced, The Sun Does Shine. Yes, that was that. I saw that book in the Gift Center too. I tell you what, there were so many books in the Gift Center. I couldn't even pause to take time to look at the books because I'm a book guy. And so I would have had to read every title. And I would have ended up doing what I did at the bookstore before the holiday. I went to get 3 books. I ended up with 24, 25 books. And so I didn't even look at titles when I looked through the sections there. But yes, I did see The Sun Does Shine. I passed by it and I kept going. So in Stevenson's examination, that's what I wanted to get to say, is that he clearly, and you can hear him all over YouTube, talk about how there is a direct line from the end of enslavement to mass incarceration of today. End of enslavement, 1863 to 1865, for those Juneteenth who didn't realize it until 2 years later. But from that time to the modern day. And he has this statement. He says that he does not say that slavery ended. His argument is it just evolved. And so through stages of black codes, through peonage laws, through Jim Crow, said that slavery, though legally, in terms of Emancipation Proclamation being issued, that physical or legal ending, but it evolved through other kinds of social means that had the very same concept, which was to keep control and keep oppressed African American people. And so in that period from 1865 to 1950, this museum has documented 4,000 cases of lynchings of African American people. And I don't know how that sounds to you, how that falls on your ears, but from 1865 to 1950, they literally have facts figures of 4,000 lynchings that took place. One of the things that I love about the museum, and it's a museum in two parts, and I learned today as we were taking the shuttle from the museum itself to the second part. I forget what they actually call it, but it's the place where the monuments to those who have been lynched are actually exhibited. I learned on that trip that they are building it. There are two more stages of building to this legacy museum. Now, the legacy, that is what the museum is about, is the legacy of the lynched, those who had been objectified and had been subjected to and victimized in violence and lynching. He built this museum for their legacy. And that's going, if you understand what legacy, especially as it's talked about today, leaving a legacy, you want to talk about how great your name is, how great you were, all of these things that you did, that people should be proud of and should remember you by. He takes a whole nother approach about that. He takes those voiceless, those who couldn't fight for themselves, who couldn't stand for themselves, who had no sense of self-determination. Kuji Chagalia, today's principle for Kwanzaa, had no sense of any of those things because enslavement takes that from you. Oppression takes that from you. You are robbed of that as a prisoner of war coming from the continent of Africa and being forced into slavery. All self-determination was gone. That's what it means to be unfree in a free country. Self-determination gone. He takes those people and he builds this museum as their legacy. It's staggering to think about that. I wish you'd take a moment to do that. Sister Deborah Ayers say the one thing lynching in Charlotte, the dirt was found on the 50-yard line of the Panther State. Okay, I'm coming back to that, Lil D. Thank you so much for that. Since Vic Johnson Williams says the National Memorial of Peace and Justice. Oh, so that's what the second part is named. There is the Legacy Museum and then the National Memorial of Peace and Justice. That's what the second part is. And so in his hugely imaginative way, he pays homage, he pays homage to people that the larger society didn't think their lives were worth even living. I'm trying to remember one of the quotes on the way out as you leave the Memorial Gardens. Has the last phrase I just made, it has that very same concept in mind. Something to the effect of people about their lives having been taken when the only thing they did was try to exert their right as humans, their right to humanity. And what Brian Stevenson does in this museum, watch this. He returns their humanity to them. He returns them to themselves. And if walking through that, to really catch the vision and get the weight, feel the weight, and get the real sense of what's happening there, it is an experience to be deeply moving. It is that. One of the other things that is so I talk about how huge his imagination is and the way he connects it to reality. Every site where the National Memorial of Peace and Justice is, where the building where the Legacy Museum is, and specific particular spots in the building where the Legacy Museum is, are places where literal, specific, particular incidents occurred in the African American experience, so that there are markers that will say, you are standing on the ground where a slave market was. You are standing in a place where this or that happened. And sisters and brothers, in his um, presentation and development of this museum, he had the wherewithal to place these buildings in places that have a direct connection in terms of location to events that happen in the African American experience. And Sister D just talked about that. I'm going to read it again. The one lynching in Charlotte, the dirt was found on the 50-yard line of the Panther Stadium. So another part of the museum, you'll see it in two places, in the Legacy Museum, and then in the, I keep having to look, National Memorial of Peace and Justice. In the Memorial of Peace and Justice, there is a case that, to my mind, is shaped like a casket, and it is filled with soil, with dirt. This dirt is actually from lynching spots across the country where families have gone and taken dirt from the spot where their loved one was lynched. And Stevenson has collected these people's collective experience of their ancestors being lynched, and he's put it all in this case. In the Legacy Museum, he has this thing, that a display that goes from floor to ceiling, and you're talking about probably a 30-foot ceiling. And there are these huge jars where soil has been collected from lynching sites, the name of the person, the year and location of their lynching. And all of these jars is in a huge display. I'll tell this part, which I did a live on what I'm doing right now, guys, earlier today, where I was walking through. You couldn't film or take pictures inside the Legacy Museum, but inside of the National Memorial of Peace and Justice, you could. And so I did a live on Facebook there. You can go and check that out. More descriptions, and you can actually see what's happening, what all looks like on there. But in the, I forgot the point I was going to make, that in the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, there are the monuments of those who were lynched, and they are represented by iron poles and iron rectangles that were supposed to be the ropes of lynchings, and then the bodies of the people. That's the biggest, huge, impressive part of what is the for the Memorial Garden. But they also have there plaques along the second section of the wall, and these monuments that they have here have dates, the names, and the locations of where the lynchings occur. When you get to the second section, however, there are walls, two walls on either side, which have captions of stories of people's lynchings all along this second wall. Because again, there's documented evidence, 4,000 people. But when you get to the third section, there is a wall, probably 80 to 100 feet long, where there is a fountain that is running all along the wall for this 100-yard stretch. This fountain represents the unknown victims of African American lynchings. And the wall, in its vastness, about 80 to 100 feet, speaks to how many unknown victims that there actually are. 4,000 they do know of, he has documented, but there are so many more that there is no record about who they are, and whose they were. And it happened to me while I was there, that is also true of our ancestors across the Middle Passage. there are estimates of how many died, and it's so crazy. It seems like every decade they lower the number. I think 12, 2 million is what they say in the Middle Passage now. When Madeline Burnside wrote a book in the middle 90s documenting 25 million who died in the Middle Passage alone, but they say 2 million now. And so the numbers, they move the goalposts on those things. Short version, sisters and brothers, because I'm right at my time. I want to encourage you, and especially you, to come to Montgomery, Alabama to see the Legacy Museum and the National Memorial of Peace and Justice. Not enough I can even say about it. But for me to take the time to do this show on it should suggest to you that it's worth your while to come and see. Got to see 16th Street Baptist Church yesterday in Birmingham and other sites there. I posted pictures about that on my page yesterday. Tomorrow I will see Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, the place where Dr. King began his ministry, where the people of Vernon hired him because they had fired the Reverend Dr. Vernon Johns, who they said was too radical, and hired Dr. King. But that piece of history I got to be a part of. I'll do that tomorrow. I'm going to post pictures on my Facebook page. Ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers, thank you for being with us tonight. And we look forward to you coming back on next week. I was supposed to do Old Year, New Year stuff. End this year well, start the next year well, and we'll be back to talk to you next time, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Love and the Scriptures. God bless you.